reasonable human being wouldn't be galvanized by the potential destruction of everything they've ever known or loved. To save civilization, I would show its collapse. How do you think this vision was received? How do you think people responded to the prospect of imminent doom? They gobbled it up like a chocolate eclair. They didn't fear their demise, they repackaged it. It can be enjoyed as video games, as TV shows, books, movies. The entire world wholeheartedly embraced the apocalypse and sprinted towards it with gleeful abandon. Meanwhile, Earth was crumbling all around you. You've got simultaneous epidemics of obesity and starvation. Explain that one. Bees and butterflies start to disappear. The glaciers melt. Algae blooms all around you. The coal mine canaries are dropping dead, and you won't take the hint. In every moment, there is the possibility of a better future, but you people won't believe it. And because you won't believe it, you won't do what is necessary to make it a reality. So you dwell on this terrible future and you resign yourselves to it. For one reason, because that future doesn't ask anything of you today. Because that future doesn't ask anything of you today. Yes, we saw the iceberg, warned the Titanic. But you will just steered for it anyway, full steam ahead. Why? Because you want to sink. You gave up.
Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. Radio.
Welcome, one and all, to I Am Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter, and this is a new time slot for my show. I'm usually 4 hours earlier on Wednesdays at 6, but now I am permanently at 10 p.m. All right. Is everybody with me right now? My two guests, Warren and James.
Yes.
James. Oh, did I lose James?
Oh, can't lose James.
Okay. I'm going to have to drop him, try to bring him back in again. So, Warren, what's up with you, man? What's new? What do you have to share with the listeners?
All kinds of good things going on. We're we're working with the graphite and graphene people. I've just learned that there's another company.
I want to check to see if James.
Okay, go ahead.
James, are you with us?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, James. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh yeah, very good.
Oh, okay, great. I don't know why I've got this little caution sign beside your name here. I thought I'd lost you.
That's a caution, like when you're driving down the road and you see a caution sign. You know, you have to take heed, and so that's why that's next to my name. But anyway, continue.
It means you haven't paid your bill for your internet service.
You're seeing it. You haven't paid my internet bill. That's what you're seeing the message, not me.
Well, it's gone now. You did something magical, James. You took it away.
Okay. But
I'm also producing my own shows now. Angela Black is no longer with me. Very sad to say, but I've finally been graduated to self-producing, and I've been around now for I'm a real pro now. I've been here for 9 months, so they finally let me produce my own show. So gentlemen, this evening I brought you together. Maybe I should just do a little bit of a bio on both of you, just so not everyone's actually heard my show before. This is a new time slot, so James McCanney's with me. I just heard him on another show the other day, and he was referred to as Professor McCanney because James McCanney is a world-class scientist. He, in my mind, he's the reincarnation of Tesla, Nikola Tesla. He's on top of all his theories. He's taught in many universities, but he felt, and maybe you can get into this a bit, James, with the listener, but he felt that his genius was not appreciated in these places. He was being repressed. His views were being repressed. And so he went on his own. He's one of the few truly independent scientists on the planet. Do you have anything more to say about that, James?
Well, yeah, in today's world of government funding, there is no such thing anymore as an independent scientist. When I was at Cornell in, say, 1979 to 81, Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, there were quite a few independent scientists there. A guy, for example, up in the Space Science Department, Stan Dermott. I'm not sure if Stan is still alive, but he was a young, very intelligent scientist, but independent. He was from England. But literally everybody, it was closing in, though. I mean, these people were not getting data. They were starting to get squeezed out of the picture. And so what I did, I was very confident in what I was doing. My plasma discharge comet model, the solar system model for separation of charge in the fusion reaction at the surface of the sun. And I should probably mention, too, that I had contact with people like Hans Bethe. I used to go up to Hans Bethe's office and talk to him. He's the one that directed me to certain journals in Europe and in the Netherlands where my work was being published. And
plus, your work was being published in Russia. That's why the Russians are ahead of us now in science.
That's right. That's right. And so anyway, just being an independent scientist, there literally aren't any anymore. But the reason I'm doing it is I just found my own path. I fund my own work. I have my own radio show, commercial free, which I pay for the airtime. And so people go, well, how do you do that? You know, do you have a money tree up in the hill that grows $50 bills? Well, in a sense, I do. So it's called just forging my own way. I have my own water filter line. I sell my books and DVDs. I've got other products.
Do you want to give a little plug for your products? I mean, I have no problem with that, but because, you know, you got to make a living.
Oh, yeah, one is something I invented. It took many years of development. I call it the Recalendar Sun-Star Clock. And what it is, it's a flat plate that's imprinted on extremely durable metal aluminum fiber with a fiber center. It's a material that's extremely durable. Unless you drive over it with a tank, it's going to be there in 10,000 years. And also printed with indelible ink. But it's the combination of a solar clock and calendar and also a star clock and calendar. And it works any place in the world. You just set it up. Takes about 15 minutes to set it up and get it aligned correctly. And then it gives you the exact time and date for all time. And it also has a calendar, so you can create the calendar years and decades out in the future and also into the past. And also, if there were a pole shift, you could literally rebuild a brand new calendar. The other thing about this is it has all of our solar system current data for our Earth's current orbit. So if in 10,000 years someone digs this up, they can not only exactly pinpoint our calendar and date line, but they can determine exactly where Earth's orbit was at the time when our epoch right now. So something we would love to have from past civilizations that have gone under, you know, to know exactly in the point in time when they existed. So anyway, it's a very nice little device, and it's only like $39.
Well, why don't you, James?
It's something anybody can use.
Yeah, why don't you drop a website or a locator for that, and I can put it into our chat room on the next break.
Well, everything is on my webpage, jmccsci.com. That's short for jmcannyscience.com. But it's the short URL is jmcc, S as in Sam, C as in Charlie, I as in indigo.com. And it's all there, all of the information.
Okay.
And plus all my archived radio shows and going back about 15 years.
There's no shortage of those. Yikes. 15 years of radio. Incredible. Okay, now my other guest is Warren Trammell, expert political insider. His father was the second-hand man to Governor George Wallace, one of the more outspoken and well-known political figures in American political history. Very prominent in the 60s and 70s in Alabama and in presidential election. What would you say?
In the 1968 and 1972 presidential election.
Yeah. The what do you call it when they're running for election in the U.S.?
The primaries?
The primaries. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. He was in quite a few primaries, running against Nixon for the most part. And,
Correct.
His father left behind an incredible memoir, and Warren's been working on getting that published. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that with the audience.
Well, even though it's a memoirs about politics some 40 years ago, it is still current today because it involves the Bush family, and it is the Nixon apparently sort of set the mold for corruption at the presidential election, set the mold for cover-ups, and also set the mold for how to use the IRS to get back at your political enemies. And ever since the Nixon administration, following presidents have used his style of IRS usage and cover-ups to promote their presidential administrations. So it is still apropos for today. It still tells you how corrupt the Bush family was even way back then, and they have been corrupt from that day to this, even back to Germany and Prescott Bush from there, all up to the very day today. The Bush family has been very corrupt, and it just shows what the corruption still exists in presidential politics today, and a good lesson in history for United States history, for world history, because Nixon was very famous all over the world. And I can tell you, when Governor Wallace was running for president in both elections, he had a lot of support and got money from countries around the world. He got money from Germany. The Germans thought that Wallace was going to be the next Hitler, and they wanted to be on his side, and they sent us money. We also got money from Jimmy Hoffa, because he thought that Wallace was going to be the new progressive leader of the unions, and he sent tons of money to Wallace campaigns. And so Wallace was actually famous not only throughout the United States, but also in many European countries, and was supported by many European countries, and is still famous in history in those countries, and particularly China and Germany. So we are. It seems like it's been a long time ago, but for me, I live it every day, just like it happened yesterday, and it's very apropos in politics today.
Wow. Yeah, no, you have the most fascinating story. Warren was on my show 3 or 4 times. It's a long story, and man, is it ever real in this day and age? A lot of the same shenanigans are happening as we speak. Obviously, a lot of the same templates are running in terms of ways to hide corruption, and yeah. So Warren, I think your book's going to be a big hit. So we're going to get that. If you can give me your site in the chat box there, Warren, I'll get it in the chat room during the break. Try to get some discussion going. Okay. So now tonight, folks, main topic of discussion is going to be what I've called the Bible and the Vatican. Is there any connection whatsoever? I know, James, you were on a show recently with Leo Zagami. He's a good buddy of yours now, or your friend of yours, or someone you've had a few discussions with?
Well, yeah, we've hung out on a few shows together, let's put it that way. We haven't broken bread yet, but yeah, we've talked quite a bit, and I'm amazed at the depth of his knowledge, and especially going in the Vatican. And what's interesting is I come at this topic, which is rather strange possibly for most people. They would think, what does the Vatican have to do with science? But I posed this question to him on the air. I said, Leo, my understanding and my experience in the world has led me to understand that the very top thing at the Vatican is space science, astronomy, and astrophysics. And he said, absolutely. They worship and their whole culture, which is extremely strange to most people. We think of the Pope and his ring and the special staff and the robes in Vatican, St. Peter's Square and the Catholic Church, and the guys dressed in Middle Ages outfits that protect the Pope. I mean, that's what most people vision. And when he drives around in an armor, a bulletproof car and all of the security, it would make one wonder, well, what's he got to be worried about? But when you understand who these people are and where they come from and what they represent, and there are people in the world who know this, but basically, yeah, the Vatican throughout the ages has controlled wars, governments, and you should know some of this from your history book, that the combining of countries, the coronation of kings took place in churches so that the common folks thought that this was ordained by God, so to speak, the coronation, and the selection of their king and the families, when in reality, these were, like the Queen of England right now sits on trillions of dollars of gold and reserves and land, which is, of course, a resource, not to mention oil and armaments and all kinds of other things. But the Windsors were created through the Rothschild banking empire out of Europe. And so they are who managed the Bank of England, which the four biggest banks in the world, and especially the Western Hemisphere, the four big banks of Canada, literally own all the water in the Western Hemisphere, and the fresh water. So
I'm living right on it. I'm living right on one of the lakes.
You're up there in Canada right now.
Yeah.
But so anyway, back to Leo Lanzagami. Yeah, he has a great depth of information going back into the very early days. And this history is known, it's just not well known to the public. But the recent meeting of the Pope in New York and all of the other things that are going on now, political, economics, and social movements, are really being operated from the Vatican. A lot of people don't understand that the Federal Reserve Bank, which literally controls the Western economy and the United States dollar, etc., is a branch of the Rothschild banking empire. And this is the front of the Vatican. The news coming out today, for us who know what's going on, it's not news, but for the general public, the pedophilia, all of the other things going on in the Vatican, that's the tip of the iceberg. What they don't realize is the satanic rituals, the other things going on. They're Baal worshippers, which is a worship of an ancient cult that has Mars as its representation. And one thing I've been concentrating on lately is the Mars NASA announcement that they allegedly found water on Mars.
Now,
and then also the Matt Damon
something for anyone who wants to check out what the Baal are. Is it Baal? Is that the correct spelling of Baal?
Yes. Baal, and yeah, that's the traditional spelling, although there's various variations of that related to Moloch, and there's other, and like with many things biblical, there's various names throughout history, but basically the misinformation today, which is being just hammered down the public's throat, is that Mars is a desolate planet, which it is today. But Mars, within historical times, was a water planet with life and a populace. And it was destroyed, and that's part of the secrets that have been kept from the public. And so when you say these things, it's so foreign to the average person's way of thinking that they just kind of, their head is spinning around because they've been, and so what I do is I go back to the Middle Ages when they taught that the earth was flat. And they did that. They talked about the earth being flat through the churches to the common people, where the nobility and the royalty and especially the Vatican, which was the cultural center of science throughout all, the Middle Ages and up until today, they knew very well that the earth was round. But why would you promulgate a concept like the flat earth? Well, because it put a mental boundary on people. You can't get in a ship and sail off to the edge of the ocean. So it just kept the people right there in their countries and very much under the thumb of the ruling classes. Today, we have the exact same thing. It's not like you're going to go to Mars, but what's the subliminal message of the Matt Damon movie? The guy that gets lost on Mars or stranded. Or the
new Martian movie. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie yet, but yeah, I heard it's somehow connected with the Pope's visit to the U.S. and their interest in astronomy.
Yeah, but the subliminal message is Mars is this inhospitable place. You will never go there. It's going to take this mega billion dollar government program for NASA 30 years to get there, and you'll never go there, and you'll just have to wait and see what NASA beams back to us. That's the subliminal message. And the same with the water on Mars message, that they discovered water, but in the next sentence they say, but the real water on Mars happened billions of years ago, and they have literally no scientific basis for saying that. And so anyway, it's complicated, but we were going to talk about the Vatican and the Bible tonight, but the original Bible is not around anymore. The real story of Noah and the flood and Moses and the Exodus from Egypt and many of the real stories in the Bible are not taught today.
James,
they're glossed over like fairy tales.
Yeah, I just want to get back to the issue of Mars and the Baal and all that stuff. Most people in the alternative radio business know that there's a lot of documentation, probably millions of books underneath the Vatican. There's evidently a 7-mile-long library under the Vatican in catacombs. Do you think one of the reasons that all those books have been kept hidden from public view or even the view of academia is the fact that there's probably mention of the Baal, the fact that Mars used to be at one time inhabited, and probably there was a lot of visitation going on between our planet and their planet?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, here's something else, and like I say, you have to break through the shell of many people. When the Pope visited New York, on his agenda, and he was going to do this, but he didn't because he couldn't get past the pedophilia issue, which people were trying to corner him on. It wouldn't look very good for the Pope to be defending himself in the church against pedophilia and homosexuality in the story of the church when, and then try and come out and say, hey, there's aliens. And we've been talking to them.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're coming up to our first break.
Goodness.
So we'll get back to this very interesting discussion of the Vatican and the Bible. 2 minutes, folks. Thanks for listening to I Am Nature. Welcome back to I Am Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter. We're having an awesome discussion about the Vatican and the Bible, topics of this nature with Professor James McCanney and my friend Warren Trammell, political insider, Trey Excellent. So, guys, we left on the issue of this amazing, vast library under the Vatican, and my feeling is that one of the reasons it's so well hidden everyone, academia included, is that there's a lot of discussion about the fact that there used to be a civilization on Mars, and it used to be inhabited, and there used to be a lot of visitation between the two, our Earth and Mars. Can you pick that up, James?
Yeah, and going back to even the 1950s, I mean, when we're kind of getting out of the Industrial Revolution, and science was we're coming out of World War II, and the nuclear age had begun. A guy named Immanuel Velikovsky wrote some books, which became highly controversial, stating in part of his story was that Mars was a blue planet. And what Velikovsky had done was he was studying calendars, ancient calendars. He was a psychologist. He was a doctor. He was from Russia. He was Jewish. And his dad was a curator in a museum. And he also did, for a while, was the curator of the museum in Israel. Really, it's such an esoteric topic. To try and pinpoint, now you have to understand, as we grew into modern knowledge, we look at all these ancient cultures from China, Tibet, in India and Japan, and the Southwest United States, and the Mayans and the Incas. And these were all disjoint societies. And he thought, if you could find one worldwide event, something major that happened all over the world, you could possibly take and align these as a 0 point going forward and backwards to align these cultures in time. What an esoteric topic. And what he discovered was all of these cultures talked about one thing, and he found what he was looking for. It turned out to be the fact that Venus was a giant comet. It came through the solar system. It went by Mars and took the oceans and atmosphere off of Mars, and then came by Earth twice, and then settled in as the planet Venus. Well, this was horrific, and like I say, we're so programmed with what we call standard knowledge, and astronomers, even though they had never sent a single piece of equipment into outer space, were absolutely horrified by this. A guy named Carl Sagan became very famous by leading the charge in burying Velikovsky. But what I've realized, and I've been part of this Velikovsky thing all along, because in 1979, I end up in Cornell University on the faculty. I'm getting data from NASA's satellites that are going out to Jupiter and Saturn and Venus, and I'm coming to the conclusion that that all of these things are happening. I didn't know about Velikovsky at the time. I had been out of the country, but the point is that.
You mean you came to the same conclusion as Velikovsky independently of
yes, absolutely. When I was at Cornell, I did not know who Velikovsky was.
Wow.
Or the whole story. I had come in fresh out of the country, and the reason they hired me at Cornell is because I was bilingual. I could teach physics in more than one language, was what they needed. So anyway, I ran into steep resistance there, and then ended up teaching. I was in the physics department. Then I had a lot of problems there. They basically threw me out. They said I couldn't talk to the students. I went across campus and got hired at the mathematics department, which is extremely unusual. It's not like very many people could even do that, but I did. And I stayed there for another year and a half. But the point is that coming from a totally different direction from science, I proved basically what Velikovsky was saying. And because I discovered that comets were these plasma discharge electrical objects and how it all worked, the physics of all of this. But anyway, let's get back to the Vatican Library. Yes, this is all understood, but the reason there was so much effort put on Velikovsky, which I'm realizing now, is because he had cracked the code. And he was exposing exactly the core issue that they did not want anybody to know about, and that's because he exposed the fact that Mars was a blue planet, it was inhabited, and Velikovsky really didn't say it was inhabited. He just opened the door. Because if it was a blue planet, the next question would say, hey, life on Mars. human life. And so anyway, let's get back to this topic. And it's such a wide, complex topic because it's been so well hidden from the public's eyes. And like I said earlier, the only way you can really expose this to people is by saying, in the Middle Ages, the church taught that the earth was flat to keep the people bounded mentally. They're doing that now, teaching that through NASA and this Matt Damon movie, that Mars is this inhospitable place and that billions of years ago it had water. And this is because the central core demon worship that's going on in the Vatican is central to Mars. And so anyway, you know what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn the mic over to Warren because his time is racing by here. And we're going to try and jump into the 21st century here, talking about the Bushes, who were, I'll just preface this by saying that the CIA, of which the Bushes were central to, George Bush Sr., grew up in the CIA, and when he was at Yale and Skull and Bones. But the CIA is the police force of the World Bank, the Rothschild banking community, which is the front for the Vatican. So if you understand that and the CIA involvement, even today in ISIS, this issue with Russia going in and bombing ISIS out of existence in a couple days, the U.S. actually starting and funding ISIS, the terrorist organization in the Mideast. But
James, what do you know about the contention? Or Warren, you can jump in on this question too. Is contention that the CIA and all the spy agencies, of which there are at least 20 in the U.S., have the equivalent of their own military, the size of either one of the other three branches, the Army, Navy, or Air Force?
The CIA, the CIA has always had its covert army. They are big time into the hard drug business all over the world, and they buy and sell drugs to finance their covert black ops wars and operations all over the world. That's how they finance themselves. One of the ways is by the selling of illicit drugs around the world, and that's how they finance.
Specifically, Warren, heroin and cocaine.
Correct.
And related products.
Correct. So they have a very big fat cash cow that they can use to finance all of their operations.
I'd say it's at least $1 trillion or $2 industry.
At least
huge.
On a slow day, it would be $1 trillion.
And they got all those banks willing to bury the money to clean it up.
To launder the money, yes, to launder it.
Yeah. Now let's bring in the Clintons as long as we're talking. When Billy was governor in Arkansas, he they used Arkansas as the base, the landing base for the cocaine traffic coming in from Central America. That's where Noriega came from.
Correct.
They killed the president of Panama, which is now public information. It just came out recently. They killed Jaime Roble, who was the the president, the legally elected president of Ecuador. And within 2 months, they killed those two presidents, replaced them with their men, because that was in their drug trafficking line up to Mena, Arkansas, where Billy Clinton was governor. Hillary did the drug money laundering through the Rose Law Firm, through their S&Ls and through the, so all of that S&L stuff that went on, and the fake purchasing of properties. Oh, yeah. These people are a bunch of, criminals that go way back. But go ahead, Warren. Let's kind of play tennis here with this topic.
Well, certainly the Clintons and the Bushes, but the Clintons were very heavy into the drug trafficking. They brought in the Bushes with it. Of course, Daddy Bush did, H.W., did grow up in the CIA. And it's interesting that Nixon appointed him CIA director, but only for 1 year. Who ever heard of a CIA director being a CIA director for 1 year? But that was the year that Nixon was planning to cover up for their attempts to assassinate Governor Wallace and my father, and he needed some help. He needed some inside help, and so he brought his pal H.W. Bush up. And by the way, as you know, Nixon and H.W. they were political buddies from way back in the Republican Party. Many years back had been political buddies. So they were good, close political friends. And so Nixon brought him up to be the director of the CIA, among other things, to help plan the Alabama project, which was the project to get rid of Governor Wallace and my father. And that program eventually morphed into the cover-up project which became known as Watergate, to cover up their attempt to assassinate the governor, who was a sitting governor, a current governor, and a presidential candidate, and his campaign manager. And back during those days, you had to kind of put your mind back in the 60s and 70s. And back then, in those days, politically, a president could be impeached for those kinds of things. And Nixon was very much afraid of being impeached and maybe being threatened with prison, possibly, and the idea of pardons had not gotten real big. Nixon introduced that, and got his replacement, that was his vice president there, to give him a pardon going out of office. And since then, presidents have pardoned all kind of political friends as they went out of office. But the Bushes were very central in the CIA, as you know, and Daddy Bush was just CIA director for that 1 year to protect Nixon and protect himself, because in the back of H.W. Bush's mind, he knew that he wanted to run for president, and maybe in the back of his mind, he thought maybe that his son Bush Jr. W. could possibly run for president. So he had those things in the back of his mind, because we know the New World Order, those people, they tell us, some at least 50 to 60 years ahead of us. What happens today was planned 50 or 60 years ago. And so indeed,
hey, Warren, I just want to mention this before I forget it.
Okay.
Right now, just contemporarily, right now as we speak, the governor of Texas is being brought up on some very dubious IRS charges. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but exactly how they nailed your dad.
And Governor Wallace, they threatened Governor Wallace with IRS charges. They threatened him and both of his brothers and several of his friends. Yeah.
Are you aware the present governor of Texas is also being scrutinized? I'm not sure if he's been charged yet, but that's the theory, is that they're going to hit him with some IRS issue, and because he's not quite falling in line with their agenda.
Right. That is breaking news to me, but it doesn't surprise me.
Are you aware of that, James?
I was not aware of that, but I know Texas is under siege. The main thrust of the Jade Helm operation was in Texas.
Absolutely.
And also, they have an operation right now where the Marines are training to go house to house and take guns away in Texas. And that's coming out from various sources. But they want to start in Texas, because I think if they can go for one of the more difficult states where there's a lot of guns, and that they can break this gun issue.
Absolutely.
And so anyway,
Texas is considered a rebellious state. They're number one on the hit list to try to bring down, because they are seen to be leading the country in guns and their economy. Texas is the number one economy in the nation, and all of their people are in favor of seceding from the Union.
Oh, what Noah really did in Texas is they asked for their gold back. Who can do that?
They did.
That bold is to ask for their gold.
Absolutely, they did. And they have encouraged other states, and other states have followed suit and have asked the federal government for their gold back. There are a number of states that have done that, for sure. So it's very controversial. They have another name for it. It's not a rebellious state. I can't think of the right term right now, but Texas is on a list of some dozen states that they consider enemies of the federal government, and on the hit list, as James says, definitely on the hit list by our New World Order government.
Well, in the IRS, according to James, the IRS is centered in Puerto Rico, which I wasn't aware of that.
I didn't know that.
The IRS resides in Puerto Rico, and the reason they do is because they are a private agency. They're not a government federal agency at all. And the reason they're in Puerto Rico is because they enjoy tax-free status, and that's why Puerto Rico has maintained that tax-free status over it's a commonwealth. But if the IRS were located in a state, it literally would have to pay taxes because it's a private corporation. It's the collection agency for the Federal Reserve in the world bankers. And if you understand how money, so-called money, or the U.S. dollar in its present form works, when you pay your taxes, that goes to pay the interest on the national debt. The money that we get annually to spend comes through the Federal Reserve as a loan to the federal government.
Correct.
And I got a kick out of Barbara Walters one time. Certainly a nice lady, but not very bright.
No.
She was interviewing Ronald Reagan, and she kept saying, "Well, Ronald, why don't you just go over there and tell what's his name, the Greenspan, where the bear does in the woods, and tell him to fix things?" And Ronald Reagan kept saying, "The Federal Reserve is an autonomous agency. I don't have anything. There's nothing I can do. I'm the president." And he said it. She asked him twice, and he said it 3 times in this interview. Like, lady, you don't know what's going on the planet. The Federal Reserve has nothing to do with the federal government. In fact, it's quite the other way around. Greenspan comes over and tells Reagan what to do.
Absolutely, he does. Absolutely, the president is nothing but a puppet of the Federal Reserve.
Absolutely, yeah. And so anyway, you have to understand how the money works. But the collection agency is the IRS, and they're housed in Puerto Rico because of tax-free status.
Sure.
We're just getting back to Texas. A lot of people don't understand that the first operation of the Clintons when they got into office in Washington, D.C., was Waco, Texas. And what happened is things got too hot in Mena, Arkansas, for the CIA, which was going on, the Iran-Contra affair and all of that going on. So they moved their operation to Waco. And the reason they had to get rid of the Branch Davidian is because it was right next to the runway that they were using to bring the drugs in. And Koresh was keeping notes on the flights coming in and out, and he was going to make it public. So they had to torch him, and that was with Janet Reno. It was really operated by Hillary Clinton, and I call her the axe lady. Whenever Billy got in trouble, Hillary went out and took care of business. And the reason she did that, in spite of the fact that Billy was not the best husband on the planet, was because she had her sights on the presidency. And as soon as Billy was president, that opened up the door for her, and that's where she is today. Because she took care of business.
Gentlemen, I've got a theory that if the Antichrist ever comes back, it could be a woman this time.
That does not surprise.
Well, there's a lot of candidates. There's a lot of candidates for that position. Let's put it that way. And I've yet to make a decision on who it might be, but it's probably alive today and kicking, and it's probably somebody you see out there somewhere. But it's
Hillary
anyway.
would be my top choice. I mean, she is one heck. She is completely ruthless.
Yeah.
She can lie better than anyone I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
That woman could be dead to rights, guilty of something, and she can just get angry at you for accusing her of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
With like her, I remember her testimony in the committee on Benghazi, And the way she dealt with that, I mean, honest to God, I mean, oh,
But you have to understand too, is these
scary.
people have backing. If you had the backing that they have, you could also have the confidence. Like when Billy got in trouble, he just blew it off. It was like, hey, nothing's going to happen to me, boys. You can go out and kick and scream and jump up and down. And that's all of the political dog and pony show. He knew that. And he knew he wasn't going to get impeached and all of that stuff. And then he passes the torch off to the next guy, the next Bush, So, when Billy got in trouble down in Arkansas, Hillary, like I say, I called her the axe lady because she took care of business,
Right.
and was not nice about it. But
No.
let me tell you a little story. Go ahead, Warren.
I just during the Watergate hearings, Hillary was fired off of the Watergate hearings for lots of illegal and unethical activities, and I think she was actually disbarred shortly after that because she was caught lying and a lot of deceitful activities during the Watergate hearings, and that's where she really kind of got her reputation as a liar and conniver and a protector of her husband, and just a general hoodlum, gangster, thug, and outlaw lawyer. And that's where she kind of started her reputation with Watergate.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Warren, can you just, I want to ask about this Watergate thing and Hillary Clinton. Are you saying she was part of the cover-up? She was part of the scheme? Or was she part of the group that was involved in examining it for the government?
She was part of the cover-up. She was part of the group that was telling lies and spreading the cover-up. And she was
working for Nixon at the time?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, these people go way back.
Okay.
The Clintons and the Nixons, they go way back. All these people are buddies in the New World Order. They're all, as the Indians would say, the left wing and the right wing are both part of the same bird, and so they work together. The Clintons work with the Bushes. The Clintons work with Nixon, who was close to the Bushes. So they're all one and the same. They're all the just opposite sides of the same coin.
I was going to mention Hillary in that during the last election when she was front runner and she had big money, and just a second, I got to. Sorry, here.
Shut your phone off?
Yeah.
I always shut mine off because your phone will ring while you're on the computer. Yeah.
So anyway, Hillary was a front runner, and she had gotten the nod from David Rockefeller in a private meeting to become the next president. This is in the prior election when Obama was running.
Oh, yeah, she tried to get in there.
And before the first, and she was very much, she did not like Obama at all.
All right, folks, pick it up after the break. You're listening to I'm Nature, your host, Brian Porter. Well, I think we're back, folks. Are you guys there? Or any
Yes, we are here.
Yeah.
Okay, just a sudden break in the commercial break there, guys. I was expecting an intro.
Yes, we didn't have one.
No,
that's the shortest intro music I've ever heard.
Late night radio, folks. You never know what you're going to get. So this is the time in my program where I usually discuss the importance of supporting Revolution Radio. Today we have two amazing guests. I always have, I think, great guests that we can learn from on my show, and I'm just one of 80 or 70 different hosts here on Revolution Radio, and we're all funded by great folk like you, the listener. And what I usually suggest is that you budget $5 a month for the station, folks. I mean that's the cost of 2 cheap cups of coffee and one at Starbucks. It's hardly going to burn a hole in your pocket, and for that $5, you can get access to our archives. There's tons of shows that you might want to download on your phone, listen to it in your car, or whatever. I mean, there's just so much going on in Rev Radio. It's hard to catch it all at one time. So pick up the archives, folks. And I understand that Hawk's got a new deal out this month. He feels that we're a bit behind, so he's throwing in silver dollars when you make a donation of $50, and he suggests that you indicate that you heard like if you wanted to donate during my show period, just say you're motivated to donate by I Am Nature and Brian Porter, the host, and that will allow you to be eligible for this extra gift of a silver dollar. So there you go, folks. It's important to support this station, and I know most of our listeners are avid listeners, and we appreciate your support, but folks, we need a little bit of help to keep on air. So guys, where did we leave off? We were talking about Hillary Clinton and her connection and the Obama connection.
And how did she get pushed out? Yes, how did she get pushed out and Obama get brought in? That must be
she was the designated next presidential campaign. She had gotten the nod from the Rockefellers in New York in a private meeting, and that's typically, even though I hate to use this term, it's a meeting like the Bilderberger meeting in which the next president is actually selected.
Correct.
And so through all the dog and pony show, but anyway, let's go back to the event. Obama was in the running, and Hillary did not like Obama at all. And Hillary thought she was in, and so did Billy, her husband, who is now out campaigning for her, thought that she was in, it was going to, and they have all this political posturing where she sits back and other people are out there taking the flack, and then at the end she comes running through to win. Well, anyway, what happened is Hillary was not a team player. She had not learned what Billy had learned a long time ago. Billy was slick as can be, Slick Willie, and he could talk, the talk and walk the walk, and he knew who ran the show. Hillary had not learned her lesson yet, and she thought she was going to rise up and start running the world. And so anyway, that's when they pulled her funding in one day. They literally took all the funding out from under her. She fell flat on her face. Obama comes charging through, gets the win, and she had to go back to becoming her seat in New York as senator, which, by the way, she would have never won if John Kennedy Jr. would have been alive, or his wife. They would have won by such an amazing victory that Hillary would have been done politically.
James, do we know specifically what Hillary did or said, or what that put her?
Well, it was a lot of things. Hillary thought she was going to be president and then move up into world leadership and basically run the world. And so in the New World Order, you have to understand, if you can see their name and see them, they're not anywhere near the top. They are cogs in the wheel, and they have to understand their positions, and Billy did. The day that she got cut, all her funding got pulled away from her, Billy got up on a podium out in California and raised the roof with the Democratic Party. But he was basically screaming to the bricks on the wall, because the real people in control were the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers out of New York, their branch in New York.
Correct.
So anyway, that's what happened. So Hillary has to go back to senator in New York, which was eating crow big time. This was not fun for her.
She had to go back to school.
Yeah, she had to go back to character building school for the New World Order. And then she couldn't run. She didn't want to become Secretary of State, because that meant she could not make any political statements and run for president. So she was going to make a run for Obama's second term, but then again, that was not politically correct, because once Obama was in, they wanted him to run and win the second term. So now she's coming back. She had to be Secretary of State for a while, and wow, did she eat crow there. I mean, she had to fly to China in the cold, and she just had grunt jobs. But this was building Hillary's character to understand her position in life. Now she understands. Hillary is a team player, and she's got one shot in life, and her goal in life is to become president, the first woman president. So believe me, at this point, Hillary is the most dangerous person in the world because she got religion and she knows who calls the shots, and Hillary will take care of business like she's always done. But this time, okay, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. That's the short version.
How is she going to get by this email scandal?
Well, see, that's in the background, and all these politicians have scandals. But my theory is that Trump, their buddy, who is also a big buddy of the Clintons, is out there running interference now. He's like the 200-pound lineman, bumping off and taking all the flack. But my estimate is that in the end, he will go into a third party, split the Republican vote, and guarantee that Hillary wins. That's my theory, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I'm not a political analyst. That's just one scenario.
I do not disagree with you. I do not disagree with you. I think that's entirely possible. You got to remember,
kind of like George Wallace, Warren?
Yes, absolutely. Like very much like George Wallace, very much. But Trump is a money man, and I'm sure he has been promised a great deal of money for his role in all of this. He is all about the money. He is a money man, and the only reason he does something is for the money. And I'm sure that
let's look at Bill Gates, who was on the rocks with the federal government. They had him in court. They were going to get him on monopoly and antitrust and everything else, and that's because he wouldn't he wouldn't give the back doors into the Windows software to the NSA to allow them into all of the operating systems on all your computers. Right. Well, Billy Gates had a choice. He got basically taken into a room and says, "Bill, you got two choices. Either play ball with us, and that will allow you a ticket into the New World Order. You'll be hanging out with the Clintons, the international, societies." He eventually got to buy his own observatory in South America that was federally funded. He paid the last little bit and has his own observatory. All these nice things happened to Bill Gates because he folded like an old shirt and basically allowed the NSA into. But he had another choice, and that was to protect you, the public, and not allow them in and make it a public issue. And so that's where Billy Gates is today, and that's why he is, and that's why he's hanging out with Bill Clinton and the boys. So anyway, if you look at these people, Trump probably has a future. And that's what you're saying, Warren. He's not going to walk away without profiting Donald Trump.
Oh.
And so, and he hangs with the Clintons. I mean, they're buddies.
Sure they do. Sure, he has been seen very often with the Clintons, and when Hillary ran the first time, he gave a lot of money to Hillary, and gave money to Bill. So they've been very close friends. In fact, it was suggested by somebody that way down the line somewhere that Trump and Hillary may be, fifth or sixth cousins or 10th cousins or something way down the line.
I don't. But if they're not, they may as well be.
They may as well be. They may as well be.
Guys up here in Canada, I cannot believe. Of course, I understand why, but I cannot believe why nobody in the U.S., anyone on either side of the Democratic or the Republicans, are complaining about the amount of defense spending going on in the U.S. You spend more money on arms than the whole world combined.
What do you mean complain? This is big money. This is big money. These guys, the people that step out of this.
Still want to balance the budget or bring down the deficit.
No.
The people that step out of this cycle, the Mark Daytons or the Paul Wellstones, or other few people who just step out and say, I'm not dealing with this, don't fare well. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, correct.
No, it's you go to Washington as a senator, as a whatever. Probably within the first 2 weeks you're compromised, and from then on, either it's play ball or your political career, your family life, and everything else is going to be absolutely devastated. So,
Brian, let me tell you something, Brian. I know you know this, but our entire Congress, they are bribed. They are threatened in many different ways. They may even be death threatened if necessary. But our Congress is totally owned and operated by the New World Order. They are all on the 99% of them on the payroll of the military-industrial complex. They all own stock in the military companies, and they are run by the military-industrial complex. Our own senator here in Alabama, Senator Richard Shelby, that's got to run for re-election this year in the U.S. Senate, already today has an $18 million war chest to run for re-election. And of course, he's not going to have any opposition at all. Period, probably. But he's become a multi-millionaire through military, and I'm not so sure that our other senator, the famous Jeff Sessions, he's getting paid off somewhere. I don't know exactly how, but he may, somewhere down the line, once in a while, they want to have one guy that kind of looks like the good guy, and they may have chosen Jeff Sessions to be the good guy in this, but basically 95, 98, 99% of Congress is owned and operated by the military-industrial complex, and that's why
right. And there's yes, exactly, Warren. And they're picked and chosen before they're even elected or before they even run. They know who these people are coming up through the ranks. They've been hand groomed, so to speak. So they know when they get up to that level of governor or state senator or representative or something like that, or the Michelle Bachmans of the world, or that they're groomed, and when they get placed in that office, doggone, they're just they're their party man or woman.
Absolutely. Our representative from my area right here, a lady by the name of Martha Roby, ran as a very staunch, hardcore conservative, and she got elected. Ran against a fairly weak candidate here. But anyway, she was elected, and they must have groomed her, because within a month or two of being in office, she was immediately snatched up by John Boehner, and out of nowhere, here's this brand spanking new freshman representative, and John Boehner puts her on the Benghazi committee. So he bought her and owned her right off the bat. Put her on the Benghazi committee, and from then on, she became a Boehner bot and was a puppy dog for Boehner.
Well, let's get back to Trump for a minute, because he has said some things that are a bit shocking for even for the mainstream. He did say he didn't like vaccines. He talked to people in his own office. Their kids got deathly ill after getting vaccines.
Sure.
But, let me interrupt you a second, Brian.
Sure.
You have to understand that Trump is not, he's called ISIS on the carpet, and things like that. So what it's telling you is that Trump doesn't know the whole story. He doesn't know who's operating things. He probably thinks if he gets elected, he'll be president. And I mean, I'm laughing at that. And poor Donald is out there in maybe the same mental state as Hillary. That
he might lose his hair if he's elected president.
Well, you'd have to comb it to the other side. But I like Trump. I mean, finally there's somebody that opens his mouth and says something, and that's real, and makes sense. And he's a businessman. He's been around the block and kicked around more times than most of us that have been around the block. So, I mean, in that sense, he'd be the best candidate of all of them to be president.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
doggone, it takes somebody, a brash New York, I won't say it on the air, 2 words, but to kick butt. I mean, This is a pretty tough world out there, and Obama is like sandlot baseball, trying to go up a guy like Putin. Oh, come on, give me a break. I mean, it's just silly.
Well, you know what? What he would do, the only way Trump would stay alive if he was president would be if he lived in Russia.
Yes. he and Putin would be. They are. I'm sure they are.
Him and Snowden could share a place over there, and he could just do things.
Sure. There was a post on Facebook today or yesterday. I don't know how true it is. That the drug lord, what's his name, down in Mexico, has put a $100 million bounty on Trump. I don't know if you saw that or not.
Oh God.
Oh no, I didn't see that.
Yeah, so maybe on my page I could probably send it to you. It's the drug lord in Mexico has put out a bounty on
Mexico. I thought it was somebody in the States.
No, this guy's the #1 drug lord in Mexico. Oh, good grief! I'm just going to find here a minute, but put a and I don't know.
Throw it in during the break if you can find it. It's no big deal.
Okay.
I believe it.
Yeah, it was. And it may be just, it may be just some propaganda that Trump has put out, to get votes. And as far as him talking about ISIS and all that kind of stuff, I think that's just promotional, to promote him, to get him votes and to make him look right. And because the general public doesn't really pay a lot of attention to that. They just like Trump because he cusses the government, and they're going to vote for him irregardless. And so it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference what he says or doesn't say. 60 to 70% of the public is in favor of him, and the polls are going to show that.
The other thing is that the things like the UN agendas that are being brought in and being voted on right now by Congress, even though it's just going to be like a curtain call vote, so to speak. It's going to go through, but it basically makes the American worker equivalent to 40 other countries. And so it's bringing the American workers down to the level of third world countries and giving an entire new meaning to the world worker. In other words, this is a communistic 40 nation consortium in which all workers are equal. There's no middle class. So there's the ruling class and the working class, and that's pure communism. Marx, Lenin, and pure communism internationally.
Sounds
without
like
borders.
Haiti to me, James.
Yeah, well, at least Haiti.
A dictatorship.
Also, Brian, I finally remembered the name of the computer company. George Soros uses the Diebold, D-I-A-B-O-L-D, the Diebold Computer Company that is connected to the Federal Election Commission computers, and that's how they rig the vote in presidential races. So the polls don't tell you anything, and I don't care how popular Trump is. If the New World Order and Rockefeller and the Rothschilds, if they want Hillary to be president, they will get George Soros to use a Diebold Computer Company to rig all the votes to show that Hillary won. And that's how they did Obama. That's how they've done presidents ever since they had computer voting. That's how they have rigged the computer voting to elect who they wanted to elect.
Yeah. Well, I don't really care who wins in the U.S. Unless they do something with defense spending. It ain't going to make a heck of a lot of difference. So.
Well, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's kind of irrelevant who wins. I think if they were smart, if the New World Order had a brain, that they would put somebody like Trump in there, someone who looks like the progressive, someone who's just going to let business go as usual. Maybe bring in help the middle class a little bit. Maybe fight against something like the TPP. Who knows? I mean, it's this steady decline downward that I think they have to be worried about, because some people think they want a civil war in the U.S., but I don't think it's in their interest to do that. I don't think they're quite ready for that yet.
They may not be. We're not sure. They are greatly in favor of depopulation, and a civil war would give them a great opportunity to kill millions and millions of Americans in a civil war, and that's what they want. They want depopulation. So a civil war would give them an opportunity to use their horrendous, massive weaponry. I don't care how many militias you have and what kind of weapons they have. They don't have the missiles and the drones and the weather weapons and the microwave weapons that our military, that Obama's military has, that are loyal to him. Their army could wipe out half the population of the U.S. if they wanted to. And in a civil war, they may do that. They would probably take the top 10 or 15 or 20 major metropolitan cities in America and destroy most of those cities. And they have no compunction about doing that. Have no problem with it.
Well, the thing is,
that's
guys,
exactly
that
right.
we've known about bacteriological warfare for a long time. I mean, they did this to our beautiful indigenous peoples 500 years ago.
Sure they did. Sure.
They used this technique. So if they wanted to depopulate, that's always an option. And we're spraying, God, I mean, we're spraying the skies every day.
Every day.
With geoengineering, and
it's
hard to put something in there. So I'm not convinced the Depop agenda is they're quite ready for it yet. I think they want to get the AI robots going.
I agree with that.
I think that's the cog in their scheme right now. That's right. They're not quite ready. That's not going as planned.
Yes, sir. They can use AI robots as their army.
Okay. We'll be back in a little while, folks, and we're going to get onto the Bible in the next little half hour. Thanks for listening to I Am Nature, and my guests Warren Trammell and James McCanney. Welcome back to I'm Nature. I'm your host, Brian Porter. Two great guests this evening, Warren Trammell and James McCanney, Professor McCanney, as some people call him. He's certainly a man of great intelligence and knowledge. Now, gentlemen, we were talking about, depopulation, that kind of stuff. I wanted to get back on track with what our initial intention was, which was to talk about the Bible and the Vatican. James, I wanted to ask you about the Kolbrin Bible. Would you like to talk a bit about that?
The Kolbrin is an interesting book. I received one of the first 3 copies of that was put out in about 1991. It came from the Chaldean Trust, which is a front group actually for the real trust. They don't release their name in public. But basically what happened is after the crucifixion of Christ, we all know that Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy businessman from Rome. He went and he got the body of Christ and took it, and then they, prepared it, etc., for the sepulcher and etc. But he also played a larger role. He was around when Christ was growing up in the background. He was an uncle, a related uncle, but he, being a wealthy businessman in Rome, traveled to England quite a bit. And he had amassed an incredible library, personal library. And after the crucifixion, he was just kind of distraught. He took his library and a bunch of people with him to England, and he began basically an establishment there. And with his library, well, in the very, very early Middle Ages, when Rome was still faltering, they had sent an army in to destroy his library. And this goes way back to this control issue. And if you talk with, for example, Leo Lyons-Agami, this is part of the Illuminati, which goes way back, keeping books out of the hands of the public and keeping knowledge. It was well known in the days of Christ and through the people who really were knowledgeable, that in the ancient days, the comets were the things that really caused the major destruction on Earth, and it had done it multiple times. And so, for example, the old predictions talked about if the end day prophecies, as some people call them, etc. It's always look up in the sky and you'll see these signs in the heavens. And I don't have to repeat them. I think we all know what they are. But they're really referring to comets, and that's what my work talks about. But the point is,
so you're saying
when the Kolbrin
Venus came by before? It came by more than once?
Yes, it came by 2 times, and the second time it really devastated Earth, and that's during the Moses Exodus event. And these were about 54 years apart. We know that from the Mayan calendar. And but the point is that this knowledge, kind of like the flat Earth knowledge, you have to understand people who are in control today. This stems from the Vatican, the Rothschilds, who own science. Now, this is coming from a scientist who's seen the inside and the outside, and I understand that at the very tippity top of interest in the Vatican is astronomy. Why? Because they know that these signs in the heavens are what they have to be looking for in their control on Earth is literally threatened by these. And remember, they set up all the governments of the world going way back into the Middle Ages. And so the end result is if the public knew, and here's the crux of the whole matter, if the public knew that celestial events, and now this is not little meteorites crashing into Earth or the demise of the dinosaur meteor type of thing. These are big objects that come through the solar system. They are turned into comets because they discharge the solar capacitor. And this is all part of my science work. But the point is, if the public knew that these events could happen at any time unpredicted, even by the Vatican or them, even though they have major telescopes, they're out there looking for these things because they want to be in control of the public. And if the public knew, just like the flat Earth theory, if the public knew of this, they would not live the way they're living today. Everything on the evening news is the stock market, the jobless rate, the war in the Mideast, the oil crisis, everything to distract you from what you really should be doing. And that's basically, Brian, something you can identify with, is simply living your life with your family and everything else. But everybody's running around like chickens with their head cut off, doing all kinds of stuff that they would never do in a million years if they really knew what was going on this planet. And who is in control in all the misinformation that's allowing them to be controlled, all the flat Earth concepts. And central to this is the issue on Mars, which they just want to keep secret for their own secret society reasons, for their Baal worship, etc. But it's a complicated topic, and the public has been so indoctrinated with completely incorrect science that comes from NASA and from the textbooks, etc., that are fed down the throats of our kids. But the Kolbrin was kept in basically in hiding for all this time. After the Abbey was burned down, the Glastonbury Abbey in England, some of the books were taken out and kept basically in hiding for a very long time. In the 1980s, they started to put these together and compile them, and finally in 1991, what we see today as the Kolbrin. It's a great, big, beautiful book, and it's, by the way, it's not the one you find on Amazon. It's spelled Kolbrin, only available from the Chaldean Trust in New Zealand. That's where they're currently, the Chaldean Trust is housed. But when you start to read the Kolbrin...
So the one on Amazon isn't the right one?
No, do not buy that. That's a long story, but if you did, send it back. It's not the Kolbrin. But the Kolbrin starts out talking about the 2 major events with the comets. And the reason they gave it to me was because they wanted me to interpret it, because they knew I was a scientist who understood these things. So I was one of the first
one of the few on the planet that understands this stuff, folks.
Literally, that's the situation. Yeah, and my book came out in 2004, Atlantis to Tesla: The Kolbrin Connection, and my weaving through Los Angeles aerospace industries, the military-industrial complex, coming nose to nose with Iran-Contra in the drug trafficking that was going on through Los Angeles, through Mena, Arkansas, through Central America, and all of this stuff. I learned firsthand about the secret societies in the banking and the military funding industry that came through Washington, etc. It's a very complex combination of factors. But the wars being generated and maintained by the families, and by creating chaos, they maintained control. And you got a guy like George Wallace, who's trying to run for the people. I mean, he was is that correct, Warren?
Yes, that's correct.
And so they don't want that. He came out of the populist ranks. They are so afraid of that.
Yes.
That their person man in Washington has to be their person. Paul Wellstone was the guy that came out of the ranks.
Well, he was no saint, James. He was no saint, George Wallace. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it doesn't matter.
He wasn't a saint, but he was a people's person. He was for the people. He was sort of morally corrupt in a lot of ways, but he was for the people, and he was against the Washington insiders.
Well, he wanted to decentralize the power structure in the U.S.
Sure.
That was a good thing.
But Brian, he didn't come out of the ranks. You have to understand, Billy Clinton is a son of the Rothschilds, or the Rockefellers, I'm sorry. He's an illegitimate son of one of the Rothschilds. That's where he came from. That's why he got his Oxford, scholar type thing and all of that. Billy Clinton had the path paved for him. And I know that from just other sources, but
they hide the lineage very well. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And so the George Wallace was came out of the populace. If you look at, say, a guy like John Kennedy, his dad, made his money selling liquor, but they, where the family got established through some of those major contacts back in the 1920s and 30s and on up to where John came along prior to World War II. And then he comes along and becomes senator and then president, things like that. Kennedy knew history. He knew about the bank and the Federal Reserve and who the CIA was. He was getting rid of them. That's why they blew his head off. It wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
No.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
But let's try to focus on this Kolbrin, because we're going to run out of time, because it's a fascinating.
The Kolbrin starts out by talking about the ancient disasters. And so when I read this, it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, because I'm reading what I understand scientifically, what I already knew happened. They also confirmed one of my personal suspicions, that there were many great comets up in the sky at one time, back in these old days. And these things did a number on Earth. And they talk about this. I mean, the Mayan Popol Vuh talks about this. Other cultures talk about this. The huge tidal waves.
Do they talk about the Great Flood?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And they talked in the Kolbrin, they talk about the two great disasters of man. They call it the renovation of man, basically. Absolutely, they talk about these events. But much of the Kolbrin is on the old way of living and simply how to live. It's kind of like a Kale Gibran type of book talking about what you should and shouldn't do in the family life and a lot of things like this. That this comes from the ancient books. So it's a tremendous book, but it's a look into the past that's completely obliterated from the modern Bible. So when you go down to the bookstore and buy the Bible, let me tell you, it ain't nothing like what the real Bible should be like. There is so much that's been taken out.
Are there extra books in the Kolbrin Bible? Different books, extra books?
Oh yeah, it's a collection of books. It's bits and pieces from the library of Joseph of Arimathea. So that's a great question. Let me make that clear. The Kolbrin is a collection in bits and pieces from this bigger library that's still being tightly held. And when this thing came out, it was unbelievable, like the things that happened to me when I started exposing secret societies. When I released this book on Coast to Coast, George Norrie asked me, he said, "What's a secret society?" Well, within 6 months, Alex Jones and all of the other, Linda Moulton Howe, everybody else were saying secret societies. And I'm the one that broke that entire topic of who they were, the families, and how many people. I estimated there were 5,000 people in the world that actually ran the world, through these families. And they're Arabs, they're Jewish, they're Caucasian, they're people from Ireland.
They're strategically placed everywhere.
Everywhere. You got it.
That makes sense to me.
And so anyway, where I ran into them, I'm in Los Angeles looking for funding for venture capital funding for my aerospace projects. And I'm meeting these young guys. They're maybe 25 years old. And they drive the nicest sports cars. They're married to the most beautiful women. The nicest clothes. They speak many different languages. And they're moving millions and millions of dollars every day, starting corporations. They can walk into a senator's office and say, "I want you to fund this project." And the next day it's done. I thought, God, how do you get a job like this? I went to the wrong college. Then it dawned on me that these are the kids who are working their way up through the ranks to become, moving up in the family business, which is basically running the world. And of course, I saw things like aerospace developments that happen in secret in black ops in LA, out in the aerospace corporations. In the next Paris Air Show, the Russians had the same thing. And this was what happened. It was a race to keep the balance of power. They wanted the Russians and the U.S. exactly equal, because the way the world bankers maintain control is if one side gets out of line, they can just put more money into one, take away money from the other one, and then the armies take care of business. And that's what happened in the Russian Revolution. The Rothschilds funded both the Mensheviks and the Bolsheviks. And at the end, they finally funded the Bolsheviks, the Reds, and they're the ones who won the revolution. But by the time it was all over, the Rothschilds' banking industry was in place in Russia. So you see this throughout history.
Is it still there today? Is the Rothschilds Bank still in Russia today?
Absolutely. And that's why we don't.
Yeah. I saw something, James, that Putin's trying to pull the plug on that bank. Did you hear it?
Yes.
See that article?
Yes, and that's true, and that's why they're distraught. But the problem is they're depending on Obama in the U.S. to be their man in Washington, and he's just a punk that doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, they need somebody who's a real leader, and Hillary wouldn't be able to cut it either. Putin is a smart guy. I mean, he came out of the KGB. He knows what's going on. He knows who's who, and he's a tough guy. And he did something very smart. The last time Russia built a big military operation that broke the country, he said, "We're not going to do that." And so they took the best military development that they could, and they're way advanced over the U.S. right now. When the U.S. sent cruise missiles into Syria, the Russians shot them down. Not a single one made it in there. That's why the U.S. is not doing anything right now, because they wouldn't get anything done. Russia has moved in there. But this is a strange situation, because Putin has the guns, the power, and he knows it, and he's pulling the plug out of the World Bank. So they're not. That's why the U.S. dollar is doing so well. It's the only tool they have to try and defeat Putin.
Interesting, very interesting. Breaking news, very interesting, James, very interesting. I had heard a
T-shirt. I want to print a T-shirt, guys. Putin for Prez.
Absolutely, I would vote for him.
Well, I watched international news because of my position, and I'll tell you, the United States looks like the dog that just got kicked into the corner.
Absolutely.
And that's really what happened. But you look in the U.S. news, it's like they're trying to accuse Russia of today of selling nuclear material to ISIS. Well, it's just complete fabricated baloney.
Absolutely.
They're trying to do anything to get the U.S. public pumped up against Russia. But
And
the
it's
reality
not
is,
It's
Go ahead,
not
Warren.
happening. The U.S. public is on Putin's side.
yeah, absolutely. And they're tired of Washington and the lies. Everybody knows that ISIS was a fabrication of the CIA, just like Saddam Hussein, just like Osama bin Laden, just like Al Qaeda, just like, the laundry list going back to Iran-Contra. I mean, it's just the list of bad drug deals that the CIA has left behind, and we're trying to clean up all the time. And they're doing it still today. They're creating groups that we're fighting wars over. But they're being exposed worldwide, which is good.
Well, let's get back to the Bible just before we end the program. Isn't this what the Bible says? That the king of the north is going to save the planet?
Yeah. Well, if you...
That's Putin.
But there's a lot of forces at work today. The Pope coming to New York, the United Nations agenda, the 40 country Pacific Trade Agreement, which is going in place. It's really a shooting match out there today. You have countries like Venezuela and Bolivia and in Cuba. Cuba is a world leader in medicine and in all kinds in education. Everybody from Latin America sends their best students to Cuba to become doctors and dentists. The world as seen by the United States is so different than what, it's like the king of Siam thinking that his little teeny country is the biggest country in the world because that's how they draw the map there. That's what's going on in the U.S. The U.S. doesn't have a clue what is going on in the world today.
Well, we got
in
the
news
BRICS.
media.
The BRICS are doing very well too. I mean, that's another economic alliance that is becoming very powerful, and Russia's a leader in that alliance too.
Russia
Absolutely.
and China.
Yeah.
Yes, Russia and China.
Yeah,
In BRICS.
And the U.S. wanted to get Assad out of Syria, but that ain't going to happen. The
No.
U.S., like I said, just been kicked in the corner like an old dog, and there's
Correct.
nothing they can do about it.
Correct.
So it's a very interesting situation politically. It could even come to this pass that another country would eventually come into the United States to save the United States citizens from their own demise, almost like happened in Germany. You could almost see this scenario. That's how degraded it could become.
Well, Billy Meyer foresaw that the Russians were going to come down and take over Canada. This is before 2020, and there'd be 2 civil wars in the U.S., and that the Russians were going to save, the U.S. too, or the Chinese and the Russians. So I think a lot of things could happen in the next little while. It's certainly an exciting time to be alive. It's kind of nice to be up here in Canada, not down in the U.S., and I'm sure that's why, James, you don't spend too much time in the U.S. anymore either, eh? Is that one of the reasons?
I try not to. I have a lot going on in my life, and so I follow what I'm doing. I have my wing generator project. I have many things internationally that I do. I just finished this summer my Harrington expedition to the tip of South America, and examining the southern skies. No,
You're in Chile?
that's out in way down south. Let's put it that way. But the
that's Chile's
that
the
information.
southern part, right?
That information is out in my July 23rd release, the Hale-Bopp Planet X Harrington Expedition update, which is on my webpage. But a very, very important bit of astronomical work there, identifying celestial objects in the southern hemisphere related to things that could affect Earth. So at any rate, so I have a few irons in the fire, and not necessarily in the U.S.
Very interesting, James. Very interesting. And one of these days we're going to talk about the graphene stuff on on your wing
Absolutely.
project. My boss and I are supposed to ride over to the graphene deposit in a few days and look it over and have a better contact with them.
Yeah, that's a topic that Warren. It's was amazing when we were talking there how many things we have in common and how many things we have to sit down and talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll do that one day very soon.
James is going to be on again next week talking to David Dene, my buddy who's living in Spain, fighting the good fight for the the people of Ecuador. But he also he's going to hopefully help James make some connections in the Eco Village community. And I guess James, you want to start promoting your wheel within the eco community.
Yeah, and that's a perfect place. That's one of the perfect places for it, besides ranches and other communities that are at the end of the line that have terrible service, pay the highest prices for electricity, to get them off of the grid. And my information, which is, I believe, correct, the majority of eco villages are still connected to the grid. And so absolutely a mindset of people that to get them off the grid and get people living with electric cars that are actually powered by wing generation power, and show the world, once the world wakes up and realizes that, economic progress can be had if you're not being drained to the bone because of energy costs. So, it's all happening and aligning very nicely.
James, how did your wing generator compare with solar generation, the solar cell generation?
But solar only works for about 4 hours a day. That's a pretty standard calculation. You take the capacity of the solar panel, multiply it by 4 hours, and that's the amount of electricity you get. The problem is you have to have this humongous storage capacity, typically in batteries. And it's not the solar panels. The batteries cost 2 to 3 times what the solar panels cost. And so what most people do is they simply hook up to the grid, use the solar panels while the sun is shining. But what's going on is because of irregularities in the solar output, clouds move in or storms, and all of a sudden it gets sunny. The local power company cannot control the voltage. It gives us voltage spike and it blows out the equipment, and they can't quick run in and shut down either a nuclear or coal-fired plant. So they're telling the solar, even though the government is promoting like crazy subsidies for solar panels all over the United States, they're telling people they can't use them. So it's a catch-22, and that's what's actually going on. But with my system is designed to replace the central power company. And we're going to start at the edge of the grid, the people that are out on the end of the line, get them independent, and then work inwards.
Well, that's where we are here in my rural county. We're at the end of the grid, and we had
so
been
you know what it's like.
Yeah, the top of our